My name is Emily. My pronouns are she and hers. I work in training and talent development and have been helping to orchestrate the Shape the Trainer conference. And I just want to start and say thank you so much to our panelists. Can we just start off and give them a hand for being here? I promised them lunch after this, but you know, as a student on a Friday trying to get you to come in, I am grateful. So I'd love it maybe if you could just go down, share name, pronouns if you like. Year and major would also be helpful. And what brought you to the position that you are in currently? Sound good? Elijah, can you kick us off? Thanks. Hi, welcome. There's a couple up here. There's one over there. Great.
Hi, I'm Elijah. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. I'm a fourth-year student studying cognitive neuroscience here at CSU. And what brought me here?
Yeah, what's your position that you're in and what brought you to it?
I am a nightly operations coordinator for Ramride, a program assistant for off-campus life, and then an intern for Ram Card this summer. So,
Awesome. How'd you find those positions?
handshake. Thank God for handshake.
Did you hear that? To those of us who get frustrated by handshake. We have a thank God for handshake. So thanks, Elijah. I know there's lots of truths.
Cool. My name's Jacob. I use he, him, and his pronouns. I'm also a senior majoring in biochemistry. I graduate in fall, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stick around because I love you all so much. I work in the bookstore in the supply department, but I'm also pretty versed in textbooks as well as customer service. I'm also part of the United in STEM Innovation Experience. I was part of the first cohort that Casey, I think she left, hired me for. And now I'm kind of progressing into the student facilitator role of the innovation experience as we move into the research cohorts. I was actually hired by Fritz online during the pandemic. I'm a transfer student, so I interviewed on Zoom with like 10 other people. It was awkward. It's probably the first time I've ever used Zoom, and I'm still here, so I love it very much. Thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, my name is Ellie. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a senior studying statistics and economics, and I'm a community support specialist in the SLICE office. And how I found this role was I was actually in an involvement advising appointment, and my involvement advisor was like, hey, have you ever considered applying to work in SLICE? And I had never really thought about it, but I'm really glad you said something because that's how I ended up there.
Hi y'all, my name's Charlie. I use they, them pronouns. I am technically a senior. I am a third-year transfer student majoring in theater performance with a minor in American Sign Language. I have two positions on campus. I'm a work-study employee. I work at the front desk of the Pride Resource Center in SDPS, as well as I am a paid employee for ASCSU. Both of those, I found the Pride job when I first transferred here. I wanted to get involved, and I also needed a job, and so then I was able to get work study and work for Pride. I became involved with my ASCSU job through volunteering for ASCSU and then moving into a paid position. Yeah.
Hello everybody, my name is Sabina. I work here in the executive director's office with Mike, Pam, and Kathy. My pronouns are she, hers. And the way that I found my job, my current position, I was working with Dwayne in the back office, which is one of the SDPS offices. And I had let him know previous semester that I was looking for employment in the back office, and he couldn't get me into the back office, so he had been looking around for positions for me. And he was able to connect me with Kathy, and Kathy was able to hire me. In addition, I have a lot of other roles that I play in the LSC. I am a senator in ASCSU for the College of Health and Human Sciences, and I also serve as president for Black Student Alliance, which is a student organization run out of SLICE, I believe. Thank you.
Awesome. You can keep it, Sabina, because I'm going right to you. Yep. So the next question. The next question is, what are one or two reasons for working as a student? Like, what drives your motivation to have student employment?
I need money.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
I definitely do need the cash. I need the income for a lot of my expenses. I am a first-generation student. I am also a student who comes from a low-income family, so a lot of what helps me get through school is financial aid, need-based, and also academic, like scholarships. but they don't cover all of my costs, and there's still a significant portion that I'm paying out of pocket because my family can't afford to have 2 students in college, which is what they have right now. And so for the past year and a half, I have been responsible for my own finances. I'm not very responsible with my finances. But I do want to be employed as a student so that I can afford to continue getting an education.
Thanks.
Yeah, for me, I mean, same. I need a job to live, but for me, it has a lot to do with finding a part-time job. For a while, I had a part-time job just in Fort Collins in retail. But the difficulty there, and one of the benefits of being like a student employee, is that I know that I don't have to work breaks unless I want to. So I can have the time for like holidays or whatever. When I'm in retail, you're expected to work Christmas Eve, day after Christmas, and my family's all out of state now. So if I want to travel, then I can't. So the ability to know that, like, pretty much exactly know my schedule as a work-study employee and working for the university, that I can pick to work over the summers or see if I can work over break if I want to. But I don't have to. I'm not going to lose my job if I don't. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the reason that I prefer working on campus. I also like that I can go to school and then go to class right after. Like, I can go to work to class and I don't have to like drive anywhere else. I can just stay on campus. That's a benefit for me.
I mean, for me, definitely just having a job in general for financial reasons. I also kind of cover all my own expenses, but I think specifically I wanted a job on campus because of similarly to them having an understanding for like priorities that we have as students. Before working in Slice, and I also work in the admissions office. I was working in part-time off-campus job, and there was little to no understanding for, it's like, oh, you got a week with like 10 exams. Well, it's too bad. Requirement to work a certain number of holidays, like extremely difficult to get any time off, like not really much flexibility, which is, it's fine. They're not expected to accommodate to students, but I was definitely wanting a little bit more flexibility that on-campus jobs have. And I also just really, especially, during the pandemic, I kind of lost all my connections to students, and I was really missing that. And so I also just wanted a community that was based on campus with other students. So that's why I decided to work more on campus.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo the income. I'll echo the accommodations for exams. I'll echo being able to run to class and then run back and work 10 hours in a day at the bookstore during rush. And for me, I also joined during the pandemic, and it was really important for me to have a home base. Coming to CSU, not really sure if I was going to be able to be even on campus. And since then, just like the investment of being in the bookstore and like working with students, for students, has been really important to me. I see a lot of faces that I recognize across campus, and I feel this camaraderie and this family. So that was a huge thing for working on campus with me, is just being invested in CSU and helping to encourage and perpetrate like the positive experience that I have and that I want other students to have.
I'm going to also echo everyone else. I financially support myself, so being able to have an on-campus job is really important so that I can navigate continuing my education and just furthering my own experiences. I think for my on-campus job in specific, it's important as a disabled individual to have a place that accommodates, and the best way for me to find that is on campus, where they have mostly student employees, where they can understand differences and intersections in life that I can bring to the table and be like, hey, I need this day off because I just don't feel good, and that's important to me, so I can continue navigating a very unique experience with my education and career.
Awesome. Thank you. I think as employers, there are lots of things that we think are probably benefits. And for me, it's helpful to actually hear you state them, right? Always continuing to work towards being a competitor in pay. And it's hard, right? Because like Qdoba's offering $18 an hour, and that's just not always what we can offer, right? So really feeling like it is the pay and it's some other pieces of the benefits is really helpful. And the pay matters. So like, right, we have to kind of keep coming back to that. I've asked too, and I know y'all came for a reason, right? So I want you to get some of your questions answered too. I have like 6 more, but I don't want it all to be just driven by what I think you want to know. So who has a question up there that a couple of the panelists can do, and we can like answer a couple each time? Sound good?
I think my experiences with the pandemic, I was fortunate that I benefited from a virtual environment, especially with learning, but continuing to need to work was incredibly important. And I think navigating work and school on campus in an unsafe world was unique, and it gave me more of an opportunity to see other people's perspectives where I wasn't being impacted as much. And so I think that was really vital for me to be able to understand the duality of like the impact and benefits of virtual environments, as well as how difficult it can be for people and institutions to adjust to something that they've never faced or even thought about facing that should be more commonplace, like a virtual learning environment or remote access for work and things like that.
So the first time that I was ever employed was last semester. So that would be fall 2021. And my first job ever was in housing and dining, working in Ramshorn. And it was not the best experience to have as the first time being an employee, because they were understaffed and underpaying us, and were not being considerate of our time. And so I think that would be my most stressful experience being a student employee. And when I say they were not being considerate of our time, they would have us stay like a little bit longer than the time we're supposed to clock off, and it wouldn't be paid time. We'd be staying like longer than closing by ourselves. Stations that should be covered by 3-4 people, it's like one person, maybe two. And at the same time, they were not paying us the work that we were doing. And so it ended up that the turnover rate for that position was very high, and I quit within 2 months because I couldn't juggle my what had been 19 credit hours at the time along with this job. And then once I quit that job, I didn't work again for a very long time, and that was a stressful situation. But I've also had a very positive experience with student employment, being the job that I'm working right now. I feel that my supervisors and my bosses are very understanding of my schedules, and not just of my schedules, but also how I feel as a person. My mental health matters, I feel like, and I feel supported not only as a student, but also as a human being.
I think one thing just to add on to the end of it, I think the most stressful moments I had were honestly coming out of isolation and starting to go back to in person, because I think it was kind of whiplash for a lot of people in some areas where we had gone online, and I also did really well with some of my classes online, and having that flexibility that when we were able to come back, there were areas of campus that it felt like we went from this super accommodating, cautious, safe thing to you're back in person or nothing. And I think that took sort of a mental health toll on a lot of students, because you changed your routine, you changed your timeline for everything. And, you know, we'd all gotten used to how we were living before. So I think that the transition from when we were all completely online to coming back to even now, where some areas have stopped offering online accommodations for things, some areas do, but where that is and the lack of consistency across that, I think is really difficult for students to adjust, whether they've been at CSU for 4 years or whether they're just starting now. It's an adjustment just being in college, and then to have your college experience change so drastically while you're there, I think has tolls that aren't super seen, because it may not affect, you know, the work that we're producing or the homework that we're turning in, but, you know, mentally, how is that impacting students when they now don't have the time they had before to recuperate?
Thanks. Yes?
I would love to have maybe others expand upon why you chose to work at the LSC. That was really great information further versus other places on campus with other campus employees. Or why you still choose, right?
I know for me, So I've had a job in admissions as an admissions ambassador since my second year, and while that job is great, the hours are very inconsistent. I could be working 1 hour a week, just our staff meeting, or I could be, working like 10 or 12 hours a week. And I really needed something with more consistency in addition to that. And so I guess I can't speak to other offices, but in Slice, at least, I know I'm going to have, exactly 12 hours a week, which is great, especially when you are a student paying for all of your own living expenses and school and everything. It's nice to know what you can expect, so I can plan ahead a little bit more financially.
Definitely the bookstore, again, echoing what I said earlier about a home base. Everyone should. I don't think everyone does, but every student should come through the bookstore, whether they're picking up the textbooks they ordered online or they're buying supplies or gear. So it's a really cool opportunity to just interact with the entire campus, and I really have created a good community of people that I recognize and I know. Again, also going forward with that, like new students when they come in and orientations and they're doing tours. We joke in the bookstore that we're the unofficial tour guides of CSU. When everything was shut down, we were the tour guides. We had maps. Nothing else was on campus. We were telling people where to go. I am gay and I am very out and open about that, and I get to be out and open to all of the students that are potentially coming to CSU. So I get to represent the inclusivity and the diversity and equity that we're striving for. And I get to do it up front before they even decide if they want to come here. And I get to help, not manipulate, but I get to influence who is coming to CSU and who may not be coming to CSU. So yeah, that's why I continue to work in the bookstore and the LSC. Oh, do you want to go?
Oh, I'll just hold it.
So I have a question. So you all talked about like what motivated you to be in your role, but I want to understand like how you think this role plays into whatever you do after you're a student employee. Like how does this connect into your professional aspirations, and what skills do you think you're gaining from student employment that are useful to you moving forward?
For me, I think I had no idea what I wanted to do. I've jumped majors. I just bounced around. I don't know what I wanted to do for a while. And I had a very great opportunity at OCL and Ramride too. I love that office and I love what we do, and being able to interact with the community in that way was very important for me. I went into it very blindly thinking that we had the best program ever, and we definitely don't. And it was cool. No, in a best way possible. It was very cool to be able to see aspects of where we really do great and aspects where we needed to fix, and being able to then incorporate that into my daily work and interacting with diversity offices, specifically like Women Advocacy Center. How can we be a safer Safe Ride program? Help kind of push me towards like student affairs and higher education, and how can I continue to improve universities and institutions that, while they have spaces that intend to uphold safety, don't always do that, and they tend to fall short, especially in aspects of different intersecting identities. And so yeah, my student employment got me there, and I think that's just cool. So.
So for me, I'm a theater major. That some people get really surprised when they hear that, because I do a lot of volunteer stuff as well in like the advocacy realm, and like people usually assume I'm a political science major. I'm not. So for me, I think the biggest thing is the community building aspect of it, how you should be treated in a workplace, and how to interact with supervisors, and it's sort of all of the things that aren't like specifically what I do in answering phones or stuff like that, especially at the Pride Center, because it's a job opportunity where I can be 100% me and interact with other people that are in the same sort of mindset and space and identities that share with me, and also where I feel like I'm always learning, whether that be within Pride or within the other SDPS offices. So I think for me going forward, I can definitely see myself using and understanding so many of the skills that like my supervisors and SDPS have shown and taught me about how, when you have one-on-one like meetings, just things that don't necessarily seem I don't know, I don't want to say don't seem important, but as like a student employee, you go in, you're like, yeah, I'm going to work. Like the biggest takeaways I have are like how my supervisor interacted with me. So like if I ever have employees that I'm working with or stuff like that, I understand that. And also if I'm ever in a situation where I'm not treated well, I know that that's not how it's supposed to be. And that there's definitely times where like I look in the past at other jobs where I've been like, wow, yeah, that was not okay. But going forward, that I have that sort of in my back pocket and my understanding, even if I'm not going to do the things with my life that I'm doing right now.
After working the job that I'm working right now in the LSC, I had a excuse me, again, I had a realization that I'm never going to accept anything less than the environment that I'm in right now, because I feel like if it's possible for there to be an environment like that right now, and it's working very well, then I shouldn't have to go back to an environment that isn't conducive of like my mental health or my physical health or my overall well-being. And I also feel like the fact that student employment in the LSC has reflected that, it kind of feels like the beginning of something almost. It feels like the LSC could be the blueprint for a lot of other workplaces to kind of look at it and say, well, if they're able to make their systems work while practicing like decency and having, you know, wholesome ideals that they're practicing with their employees, like maybe we can do that too. So I feel like my experience now will serve me later in the future because I'll only look for experiences that are similar to this one.
For me, I think there's definitely a few things that I'll take with me into my professional life after my time here at CSU. I think the first being learning how to create such a welcoming work environment, and realizing that, you know, your place of work can be something that tremendously like adds to your life, and should be like that if it's possible. And I think also just learning that it's not just those in leadership and like supervisory roles that are responsible for creating those welcoming, accommodating spaces. You know, anyone in the office can and should be contributing to that space. And I think learning how to, I guess, put myself out of my comfort zone to make other people feel more welcomed. I think that's definitely the main thing I've learned in my time in Slice. I think also just learning how to communicate with a variety of different people. You know, I communicate with student staff, professional staff. In my role, I work a lot with nonprofits. For CS Unity, countless phone calls to older adults. And yes, I'm Gen Z. We don't make a lot of phone calls anymore, but that definitely, that definitely forced me to do that more, which is definitely a skill that I needed to improve, and it's improved now, so that's great. And just, you know, learning how to solve problems independently, and being trusted to solve those problems. And I definitely have a lot more responsibility in this role than I did in, you know, like my barista job at Starbucks for 2 years. Like I'm trusted by my peers and supervisors to, you know, if you have a problem, like just figure it out, try something out. And if you mess up, just, keep trying. And so I think learning how to solve problems independently is definitely a great skill that I'll take with me into any career in the future.
Mine's twofold. I'll talk about the bookstore first. I am slightly older, and I did spend 17 years in food service management, customer service. I've done corporate training all over the country. I've quit many a job. I've walked out because I work my ass off. And, you know, there comes a point where the excess and the extra becomes expected instead of appreciated. And the bookstore has never once, at any point in time, ever crossed that line with me, and I've always felt just completely valued. It will be one of my last customer service jobs as I move into research inside of a lab. So I guess from the bookstore, what I'm taking away with me is that all those terrible experiences where people kind of just walked all over me is not how it always is, and just kind of getting to close out a very huge chunk of my life with positivity and love there. And then on the other side, the training lab that I was in, and now the kind of research facilitator role, is that I got paid to play around in a lab and research and figure out how to pipette before I had to go do it in a lab course. And now I'm getting to do professional research that we're going to submit for publication. And it's really just geared me for the rest of my life as a researcher. But in a different realm, I'm going to be with test tubes and a lot of like DNA and yeast, which you're all probably like, what? What does that mean? But then in the United in STEM training lab in the innovation experience, I've gotten to do social science research and really focus on, we're looking at racism-related stress on campus. And it's opened up an avenue of research that I can't wait to continue on the side outside of my test tube lab research that I'm going to be doing.
So Ellie, you mentioned you were Gen Z, and a few of us just came from understanding generational differences in the workplace session. So my question, I'm trying to figure out how to frame it because there's a couple different ways I'd want to take it, but what would be helpful for us in the room as supervisors and working in that multi-generational workforce, knowing that some of your supervisors are literally in this space? What are things that you're hearing about your peers, especially at CSU, that we could do better as supervisors for student employees? So maybe like, yeah. That question makes sense. I felt like I was taking it in different directions while I was talking. Yeah.
Since I have it, and since I think I'm older than, I'm 32, not all of the employees are young. Not all of them are Gen Z. Some of them are older than you are. So just keeping that in mind, that's going to be a different way. You're going to have uniquely different relationships with them. And it will be a fine line that you have to watch between peer and employee and things like that. So just keep that in mind that we're not all young.
How am I going to tackle this? Okay, sure. Yeah, we're gonna word vomit. So the idea of professionalism, I think, it has obviously a lot of different things and roots, and we can get on the white supremacy thing, but we don't need to do that right now. But so I think the biggest difference, one of the things that I've observed, especially generationally, can be that I don't want to say like, this is really hard to make words. The idea that, so if I assemble this down in my head, the idea that the respect your elders idea, the respect your superior idea, is important, but the idea that respect has to come both ways. And I've definitely seen and felt and understood a lot of conflict between when a position starts. I feel like you can make it or break it in the first 10 minutes you meet a student employee, because it can be very difficult to feel that like you should automatically have respect for someone who may not have respect for you. As someone that's a gender fluid person that does not have visible disabilities, meeting somebody or beginning that interaction, if it doesn't feel like they will respect those identities or those parts of myself, and it's usually really clear if they don't, if they've had their one safe zone training or if they actually care about me. And so I think that can be an issue and a struggle, and it can sometimes get shoved under the umbrella of professionalism, of you are here for a job and I am your supervisor, so these are my instructions, you need to respect these instructions. If that respect kind of isn't, I don't want to say earned, because I'm a believer that it should be interchangeable and a consistent relationship. But that, as well as sort of the idea that there's a hierarchy. Like obviously there's supervisors, there's people you report to, but it's a very generational thing I have found in my experience, that having that clear hierarchy only sort of feeds into the I am superior to you, whether that's because I am older than you or because I am your supervisor or because I am this. And I think that's something that across campus has sort of, I've seen in a couple different ways, not just in the LSC, but sort of everywhere. And I don't have the answer to that, but I think that the awareness of it can be something where even if this is how when you were, I'm 23 years old, if your job when you were 23, how that works, if you're an older individual, if that was how it worked then, it's not the automatic now. I think there's been a lot that shifted there. So yeah, that's what I would say. Hopefully that made sense. But here we are.
I wonder if we can pause, and we'll continue on with it, but this is a really interesting one because I'm going to push a little bit because I'm curious and I think we can all handle it in this situation. But one of the critiques that we get a lot from students who have left and then come back are like, you didn't prepare me for what I'm going to experience out there. You were too kind. You were too inclusive. You were too put in the XYZ. And that feels really tough for us to hear, because we love, we care, we want to flex, we're also possibly picking up shifts that students are like, I can't do because I have 10 tests, because you have 10 tests, right? And I think so many of us in this room have consented to understanding that that's a portion of it. And I am curious because, Charlie, what you so beautifully, I think you beautifully articulated, is that the power flow, right? And like this expected respect without, and then it can turn into this ageism, is what I'm hearing a little bit in that too, of like, you just don't know because you haven't been there yet. I deserve respect because you don't have the experience. And I hear you being like, no, like we need it both ways. So I wonder, mine is now jumbled in all of that space, but it's the beautiful tensions that I think that we try to dance, of creating those spaces that are affirming, accepting, inclusive, while also encouraging accountability. And how can we prepare you for what's out there when it might be crappy out there, right? Like, I love, Sabina, you're powerful. Like, I'm not going to accept being treated less than I'm being treated here, because this can exist. And we believe that. I think that's why we manifest that in a lot of our environments. And so how do we either encourage, keep at it till you can be the change makers who are in the supervisor positions to make those decisions, or like, I don't know, we want to prepare you and have accountability, as well as be flexible and understanding and inclusive. So how do we do that?
I wish I knew.
I know.
One thought that I kind of had immediately was about the idea of the transparency of it, in that, it doesn't hurt any of us for y'all to say, of course I'm going to be accommodating, of course I'm going to do this, but if you're in this specific position in the world right now, it's probably not what you're going to get. Like, it doesn't hurt us if y'all tell us that. But as well, and literally kind of what you were saying, and not to get, I don't know if this is cheesy, but like, the only way that it will change out there is if more people that are growing up with this start to make the changes out there. So I think that part of it makes it even more necessary, if it's different here than it is in the real world, because what are we perpetuating then? If we adjust what we're doing now, which we know makes students feel supported and heard, if we adjust that just because that's what's happening out there, then we're in a state of not changing and not growing. So that's what I would say. I don't know. I mean, I'm very aware that when I go out to jobs that it's not as great as working in the LSC, but I definitely understand that's difficult. But I also don't feel not accountable. And I think that's a tricky thing for people in supervisory roles to figure out, is how to be accommodating but also keep accountability. So y'all are doing great. I mean, I don't want to have to figure out how to do that. But I don't feel less accountable because I have the opportunities to seek accommodations if I need them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think similarly to what they were saying, like, I think a lot of students realize that we have very special and unique, we're very lucky to have these jobs in the LSC. I think a lot of us know that it's, not going to be like that necessarily, or, first, second, third jobs, after CSU. But I think the great thing about it is that since we've had these like great experiences and accommodating spaces where we feel welcomed and have a great sense of community, is that when we are in those positions in the future where we don't have that, we don't settle too quickly. We don't just, throw our hands up and say, well, I guess this is just how it is for the rest of my life. We can recognize that, it's different than what we had here at the LSC, but also make small changes to strive to have our future workplaces resemble the ones we have now. There's things as if we're working in not so welcoming places in the future, and such accommodating places, we might have varying levels of power in our future roles, but we can use what power we do have to make the space just slightly more welcoming. Or if you have the power to, accommodate for one of your employees like us in the future, then we can do that. So I think just making small changes in our own careers in the future to have those resemble what we're experiencing now, and just realizing that, like everyone's been saying, that it is possible. So, even though it may be difficult, that we should strive to replicate that.
Elijah, did you have?
When you said that you have student employees coming back and saying you didn't prepare me, I think it reminds me of talking with one of our former graduate assistants as well as one of our graduating students. Is they expressed feeling sad that when they were leaving that they didn't get to finish the work that they started. And in some ways they felt like they're going to have to restart a lot of things that in the new environments that they're entering. And it reminds me, and it kind of goes into like this weird aspect of parenting of like your generation is going to look very different from the next to the next to the next. Each individual is very unique stepping into any situation. How are you setting it up for the next generation to pick up what you've left off and continue forward, as well as supervisors, as employers? How are you exiting your workspace and entering it as your authentic self, and how are you challenging other employers that you interact with who may not be on campus, who are on different buildings and different aspects of campus that you may be interacting with? How are you only holding your own office accountable, or are you holding friends accountable, or yourself accountable? Just kind of questioning aspects of how, as an employer, can you continue to support your employees and recognize that you only have so much energy and space to do that, and how you're incorporating authenticity and growth inside and outside of the work environment. It shouldn't just be when you walk into that office door, you're like, okay, I'm going to be forward-focused thinking, and I'm going to support my employees and students. You have to be able to walk into that office with boundaries of your own self and what you need, and bring what that forward thinking that you put into that office outside of your office, into your own life and into your friendships and things like that. It goes far beyond growth in one spot, I think.
Thanks, Elijah.
I'm curious if, and I was in that generation.
Yeah.
I'm curious if we as supervisors are giving you the tools to have a voice when you're not being treated well, when somebody's losing. So Sabina, I was thinking more so about you. I'm also with Cedar Legal Services, so I'm really worried about what you say. But I mean, because I also come from the generation of, if you saw a problem, you worked to fix it, right? Which is my thing, right? So are we giving you those tools and giving you a real space? I mean, I know that we can say as supervisors, if you have a problem, if you have a concern, come and talk to us. But you have to do more than say the words, right? You have to actually create a space where you feel comfortable doing that, to learn it here and then be able to take it out, beyond the beautiful bubble of the LSC, right? So are we doing that for you all, or and if we're not, and if we are, how's it working well? What is it so the rest of us can learn? And if not, what do you all need?
I'm glad that you brought that up because before you asked that question, I did want to address what Emily said about student feedback, of students coming back and saying, you didn't prepare me. And I feel like that's a little bit unfair because I don't think the responsibility of being prepared for the outside world falls on a person's employer. I think it also falls on the education system. This is a university, and like we're supposed to come here to learn. So I feel like it's kind of like the whole thing where you come to college and you're like, well, I wish instead of learning about the Pythagorean theorem, they would have taught me how to pay my taxes. Yeah. And so I feel like if we're in college, I feel like it also falls to our professors to take it upon themselves, or for our curriculum to change a little bit and have more inclusivity about how we can prepare ourselves for what comes after college. Because I've heard it from a lot of college students. I have a lot of friends who just graduated who don't know what to do with themselves right now because they were not prepared for the reality of not having a structure beyond being a student, because for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, they've been consumed with their education and consumed with figuring things out like this. And now that they've graduated and they've earned what they came here for, they don't know what to do next. And now they're telling me, I wish my professor would have told me like what to do next. I wish that my advisors would have made like a next 6-month plan. I wish they'd have checked in with me and that they would have helped me figure out, do I have finances to support myself for the next 6 months? Do I have the resources? Do I have a community? Do I have someone to talk to? Because you kind of get evicted from college. And, you know. And so I understand where students are coming from when they say you didn't prepare me, but I also don't think it falls on, you know, employers. I mean, like, there are tools, like you said, Penny, that employers can provide. For example, we can train employees how to have that language to talk to employers. I feel like that's an important aspect of being an employee. But other than that, I feel like maybe we as employees and employers can advocate for ourselves to create change within, like, our university, for example. We can ask our systems to provide all of us with, like, more tools to help us all communicate better.
I would say that for me personally, with my experience, like working in the Pride Center, I have, you know, it's been a great opportunity and it's been wonderful. And one of the things that, you know, we talk a lot about is, you know, not just team dynamics, but what do you want to do when you leave college, and kind of having that set up and resources for when you do get booted out of the university. And that's definitely a rare occurrence to have a supervisor talk to you about, this is how you can apply what you're doing right now. Hey, email me your resume and I'll look at it for you. Or, hey, so-and-so in the Career Center is perfect for what you want to figure out right now. So I think that as much as it is, you know, like you were saying, you know, not necessarily your job or your responsibility, but you do have connections across the university as, you know, employers and faculty members of the university. And as much as you can utilize those connections, I think can be really beneficial to students. I'm definitely still kind of stuck on exactly what you were saying, is how to, am I going to be able to advocate for myself in the same ways when I get to a workspace that's not the one that I'm in right now? And I think that it'll be good because I'll feel like I have, like, I know what I deserve kind of a thing now, but it's that link of, what if I love my job and I want to make that change, but I don't know how to. And I think that that's kind of a gap that can maybe be filled in the future, because I now understand what I deserve, definitely through working at the LSC. But I also, you know, I don't have a lot of experience arguing with a supervisor over using my pronouns, because my supervisors have been great about using my pronouns. But when I get out there, will they be? Kind of a thing. And will I be in a space where I have that support? And so I think that when we are leaving, you know, making sure that we do still have a community and a network to connect to. I know that Maggie, my supervisor now in Pride, and Jess and Jessie and ASCSU are people that I could put down for references in the future, or people that, you know, have connections in different states. Like if I say, I've already said, maybe I want to move to Oregon, and Maggie's like, okay, these are 3 people in Portland that are safe for you. So it's not even, you know, you have your lives and the people that you've connected with over time. And even if it's, you know, not somebody that you've talked to for a while, maybe you know that they're a decent person and that you're not sending us into the wind, kind of a thing. So I don't know necessarily what more could be done, other than I think the value of those connections for students leaving CSU, and the transparency of, you know, a lot of the outside world is not going to be as accommodating, and how can we be supportive to that, for that.
I'm just kind of spitballing in my head. You know, we get employee reviews. You review us, and we sit down and you give us a checklist of average, above average. We don't review you. That might be a way to open a door and invite us to give you feedback. you have a power dynamic, right? Like you unfortunately are in a powerful role and you're going to oppress us whether you want to or not. So coming up with ways to maybe help eliminate that oppression. Maybe you do a roundtable discussion where you sit down with all of your employees and you be like, let's talk about what's going on. Like, what can I do better? Definitely transparency. I think expressing that, like, I'm not just telling you to come to me if you have a problem. Like, I need you to come to me if you have a problem. Creating, maybe there's a position that you can create that's not a supervisor, that's somebody that you can, which now that I'm saying this, you probably have this that you could go and report things to, but maybe not an HR representative, not an HR manager. Maybe it's just another employee that's going to be like, yeah, you can come to me with your stuff and then I'll pass it on anonymously. You're in powerful roles and that's becoming more and more apparent. There's like power dynamics, and how do you get around that? That's the barrier that's eliminating these conversations, preventing them from happening.
I really love you bringing that up, Jacob, in terms of, you said something really, like, very profound that I want to, like, circle back to. So I've been doing a lot of, context for me, I've been doing a lot of more research and diving into intercultural communicative models, right? So there's this assessment, the Intercultural Development Inventory, Sagarika Sarma, and a variety of folks are trained in on it, and we're wanting more. Because it's so interesting when you look across, and what I'm hearing a lot of is the distinctions around power distance, right? And really wanting, and I think a lot of times modeling pretty low power distance, right? A lot of access to supervisors, maybe it's like supervisor in name, but we try to make a collaborative space. And I feel like what's being demonstrated here is a lot more of wanting to move forward in that direction, right? And then there are like cultures that have very like overt power structures and very communicative, like you don't go here before you go here, and that's just the way. I wonder if it, like, because I just taught the workshop on leading your peers last night, and we talked about power as being all around us, all the time, in all of our relationships, but it inherently not being good or bad. It's what you choose to do with it, right? So thinking about, like, does power automatically equal oppression? And can power be used in leveraging our different ways towards that? So I'm just like, I love being in these conversations with you all and with us to kind of co-construct the meaning together, because this has been a huge feedback session for me, for hopefully us, for hopefully you all to see that we care, and a variety of things. I know we are getting to time right now, but if you can stay for 3 or 4 minutes, I would love to get everyone on the panel just like, what do you want to leave us with, right? What do you want as thinking about kind of the moving forward or into the summer to fall to next year, what either would be helpful or something that you would like us to know?
You're not going to please everyone. For a lot of people, I'll say myself, you've succeeded in everything that you set out to do. I love the LSC. I will love it forever. I'm happy that it's like kind of my embarking point to a new side of my journey. So you're doing a good job, and don't take it as like you're not doing enough, because you are, in my opinion. So as many people as you may feel you're not helping, you are helping just as many.
I think just keeping in mind that actions that may be really small efforts for you all can have a huge impact on us students. I think especially when it comes to just showing care for your student employees outside of their roles in the LSE, just a simple, genuine, how are you doing? Remembering that test they said last week and asking them how it went, things that can be fairly simple on your all's part. I think sometimes, you don't realize how much it really does mean to us students, to have, those people in our lives that, show genuine care, because, some people have more or less of that than others. And so to have that in these jobs in the LSE really means a lot.
I can go. I would say, to put it simply, we see you. You're there, and I think that, if you are thriving, we're going to be thriving. So if, understanding that, if you're having a crappy day, and that's okay. Like, I'm, as a student, like, you can tell me you're having a crappy day. I'm like, I'm sorry, that sucks. Look at this funny sticker. I don't know. Like, you don't have to be perfect, is what I'm trying to say. So you don't have to be perfect, and you shouldn't feel like you need to be perfect for students, because you are human as much as we are. So, understand that it's the dynamics can be more than just some strict box of automatically saying, hi, I'm good, how are you? Like, it can be more than that. You're humans as well, and we see that, and so you're allowed to have that.
Kind of bouncing and like echoing off Charlie. You said it great, and I love it. I think it's just like continuing to support yourself. Like, just because like we're adults and everything does not mean that we have lost the right to enjoy our lives and be authentic. And I think I talk about this a lot in and out of work, is just like, how do you continue to be your authentic self inside and outside of work? And how have you seen other people's authenticity? How has that made you better or happier? Tap into joy or heartbreak and aspects of humanity, and how are you bringing that in your walking life? And I think that's just, that authenticity is unique to each individual in this room, and that's what really, for me, and I think other employees, has cultivated health and growth.
I just want to say that the LSC gives me the warm fuzzies.
Woo! Well, Sabina, do you want to say more?
Oh,
Sabina?
I have a little bit more to say.
I was like, mic drop.
I really do appreciate that everyone who I've met in the LSC has a personality. Everybody's like okay with being their own person and having their own personalities, whether that be like the people who work here, or if it's just students passing by or visitors. And I have found that a lot of visitors, when they come by or when they're on their way out, they talk about how nice the staff was or how much they love the environment here in the LSC. And that's what I also love. Like, I'm in the LSC every single day, from not when it opens, because that's very early, but always until it closes. I'm here, and I see a lot of familiar faces here. And I've only worked here for a semester, but I feel like this was an important conversation to have, for one. And I really appreciate everybody's honesty and vulnerability. And I feel like the only place that the LSC is going to go from here is up, in terms of growth, communication, and trust. And so I'm very excited to like work with the LSC next year. And I'm also very excited to see where this conversation takes us.
Sabina, Charlie, Ellie, Jake, and Elijah, thank you so much. Can we give it up for our panelists? All right, well, yeah, go.
Do any of you know anybody who's looking for a job?
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends.
Is it work study? Okay. I have some people who don't have work study, and that's a barrier.
Okay, can I get your business cards, please?
Is your stuff on
Handshake link?
Handshake? Yeah. So it has to be on Handshake. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
This is awesome. But it was not.
We're kidding, but we're not. We have friends that need it.
All right, thank you so much. This officially, unless you're doing the escape room, which is going to be amazing. If you wanted Petri dish into the escape room, it's in the conference center of Slice. It's pretty awesome. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming. You helped us finish out this workshop series strong. This, as well as a lot of the other sessions, will be on YouTube within the next month. We've been working with our awesome tech department who will help us put those up. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a great weekend.
You're gonna feed us.
Oh, also,
No.
Employees are coming back and being like, you didn't prepare me. Lindsay and I were talking about it earlier, where she's like, I messed up. And I think one part of like, Sabina said it well, of like the only place that we're moving forward In terms of, you don't get to get better without like absolutely biffing it and scraping the shit out of your
You're
knees.
not wrong at all.
And it's so important to be able to be like, yeah, I messed up, but I'm trying trial and error to replace awful things that once were in workplaces with better things. And it's just
I
like
love that
experimenting.
perspective.
And so I think
That's helpful, Elijah. Thank you.
not
We're all
everything's gonna
trying.
go right.
I
Yeah.
know. If you have not gotten a lunch tote, please go get a lunch tote at the info desk. The info table. Oh, Wendy's got one right there. It holds 2 bottles of wine. Are we still recording?
I'm gonna take your
mic.
La la la. Just wanted to Heather Reimer.
Heather? Oh!
So I wanted to officially introduce myself.
Oh my God.
Great job. I came from Century Receiving, and Jake, our surplus manager, came, and like it was like I want our managers to our other managers to watch it, and then will you be sure to forward the video to Lory at Housing
Yeah.
to make sure she's aware. And
Yeah. I know. I was like, oh, that could be hard and good. And yeah.
I mean, I think it's good. I have no problem. I mean, I have a relationship with her. I have no problem.
Okay.
I mean, definitely.
Oh, good. Yeah.
They need to fix.
I like that. Yeah, that is.
And I've heard it, but I have not.
Is the food at the info desk? Is that where we go?
No, I'm paying for you.
Paying for.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, my P card. Elijah, wait. Wait.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for getting me your other
I
stuff.
know. I was like, when I saw your away message today, I was like, oh, I missed it. That's why she
only came to campus for this
You did.
today. I'm on, like, I took the day off, but I was like,
Oh.
we need this perspective, right? So, like, I
Oh, I'm
wasn't
so
going to miss it. So,
glad.
yeah, I totally, that's why I'm like, well, sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like this, too.
I know, right?
I, like, actually took off my comfy pants and put on jeans.
Hard pants
So I'm
day.
going to, like, go back and put on my other
Oh,
pants. So, great
awesome.
job.
Thank
I didn't
you.
participate in anything else, but
You'll get
this
some
was
links.
wonderful.
This
So
is
I
awesome.
appreciate it. So
Thanks.
thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Woohoo. Oh, that wasn't bad. Yeah. Will you all sign this too because you were here.